In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda,
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
a place at the table where we're set to check much more than the table.
Welcome to a place at the table and to a menu of fresh topics. I am taking on the case of rent regulation. Isn't it long overdue, Ande?
Yes, certainly, Yinka. I agree with you on several levels. We continue talking about our heroes past, now a line in the old national anthem, but I think beyond doing away with the national anthem, we need to do away with some politicians. I'm talking about succession.
Indeed, Ande, for everything there is a season. Looks like this is the season of the new old, the old and the new coming together. Well, I'll be tackling the perennial neglect of child welfare and amplifying the cries of our children.
Speaking out for the voiceless. Well, I know it's high time our lecturers received a lecture from their students. I'm saying, Mr. Lecturer, now lecturer you be, you know, be God.
I feel you, Aisha. The God complex is certainly at the heart of our problems with leadership in this nation. I'm asking, when will our change come?
Clearly, we are all impatient to make progress. Let's not delay things any further. I'll be opening the floor. A case for rent regulation. In March 2024, Senator Nwoko's bill titled 1 Month Rent Limitation and Landlord Registry Act, which was introduced in January 2024, scaled the first reading. The bill, if passed into law, will make it easier for tenants to pay their rent monthly instead of 1 to 3 years in advance, which is currently the case. The bill also calls for the establishment of a rent control agency to monitor and implement the law. This federal agency will require that every tenancy agreement must be in written form and a copy filed by the landlord/the tenant at the agency within 2 weeks before commencement of the tenancy. The failure to do this will attract a 10% fine of the total rent sum. Rent control isn't new in Nigeria. In 2011, the Lagos State House of Assembly passed the Tenancy Act, which criminalized the collection of rent over 1 year from new tenants and 6 months for sitting tenants. This reduced the practice of collecting 2 years' rent in Lagos. Additionally, the resolution recently passed in the House of Reps urging the FCTA to regulate house rent and activities of landlords in Abuja shows that this issue is gaining momentum, and it's a case of when and not if it will happen. Sooner than later, 1 month rental will be law in Nigeria. If workers earn their income monthly, then they should pay their rent monthly. The current system of paying rent 1 to 2 to 3 years in advance creates inequalities. It is estimated that Nigeria has a housing gap of over 28 million. To fill this gap, we must do something about this practice of advance rent payments. The Senator Nwoko bill should include a provision to require developers not to have a property unoccupied for more than 6 months. If they cannot fill these units, the state should be able to allocate them to those on the waiting list at subsidized rates. This is why I like the idea of the monthly rent scheme by the Lagos State government, designed to protect landlords and tenants. According to the Special Advisor on Housing to the Lagos State government, Barakat Odunuga Bakari, this scheme, with a seed fund of 5 billion, is expected to be implemented before the end of 2024. What say you?
Well, for me, I hear you, and I hear you loudly. Almost everywhere in the world, you pay monthly rents. We do the opposite in Nigeria, and I believe that this is one of the factors fueling corruption in Nigeria, because people have to meet up with the obligation of paying either a year rent or 2 years rent in advance. Having said that, you talked about the criminalization of paying 2-year rent in Lagos. Did you say that? In Lagos. The Lagos. So, but then what has been the enforcement like? Because we all still pay 1 year, 2 years in Lagos. So it's one thing to create a law, it's another thing to enforce the law. So it looks like the law, okay, let's just listen to them and create the law. Bam, law. No enforcement. So the landlords are still lords of the manor, as it were.
I don't think anyone will be against monthly rents. I think that's the way to go, at most a year, for those that can afford it. There should be some regulation in properties, but I think we shouldn't also ask for too much regulation of property, especially where you mentioned a property cannot be empty for 6 months. So you can't say maybe the rent for 2-bedroom house is X, because somebody's 2-bedroom house, the finishing, the location, you know, it's going to be something quite complex. So, and finally, I'm a bit wary of creating another agency that is collecting money. They will tell you, like VIO, we generate our salaries. So they will be everywhere creating a new agency.
For me, in the words of Zuma, a law without consequences is a mere suggestion. Right. Who is going to hold these people? In Lagos, even still, they are collecting 2 years, 3 years. If you don't want to pay, be going. Nothing will happen to the landlord. And the tenant has to go seeking for other accommodation. Month to month, we shall see. Because I don't see it happening. In Nigeria, it always comes down to enforcement and people actually knowing that these laws will work for them. You know, and then of course, will they pay? We have issues of landlord complaining that tenants will be there 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. They will go to court. No, of course, there will be no payment. So it's a dicey situation, and I'll stand with Ande. We don't need the creation of another agency. The proliferation of so many agencies, nothing is happening.
No, the thing is, what I noticed with Lagos is that, because before you get into a new house, you have to pay 2 years.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, with the law, it reduced that to 1 year. So what you find out is that the landlords now demand for 1 year, but the agent
demand for 2 years.
Demand for 2 years.
Yes.
So that was how they were trying to get to get around it. So to an extent, you'll see that, well, okay, maybe there was enforcement is challenging, but that behavior in terms of collecting 2 years went down.
Are you done?
Yes.
Government should build houses for its people. Senator Nwoko, sure he was there when they were there. I didn't hear his voice when they were changing national anthem. He should tell government to go and build houses, mass houses for people. I'm a landlady, and I've been a landlady since 2007. And I can tell you I have a lot of tenants. In short, I always tell my tenants, they are my bosses. They are the ones that make me have big mouths, because I know from time to time, something will drop from them. People always think that, you know, house owners are just making this money and everything. How are they going to get their payment every month? Who is going to pay? And when they don't pay, what are you going to do with them? And I'll give you an example. We have tenants that have stayed 3-4 years without paying.
Hey,
there was one.
See what I'm saying?
The arrogance. I even had to go and meet her. We are talking about rents running into millions, and you've not paid. And in front of your house, you have your religious whatever this. And
those ones.
It's not working. Don't forget.
Aligning.
Yeah, it's not aligning, because there should be integrity. You're calling God. You should do the right thing. I can tell you that from December last year to where we are now, there are some building materials that have tripled. Some have quadrupled. I had wanted to start something. I even registered it. It's called House Susu, where I said, because for me, in 2010, I have a goal that I wrote, that I wanted to be providing, you know, houses for at least 20 families, that they, you know, comfortable houses, because we build houses as if you're going to stay in it. And so for people to have their own houses, so I was doing like houses, so I like, fine, So that people can, the way you do Esusu, little by little, we gather like 10 people, build 2 bedroom, 10.
For the
one
first
we take,
person,
the other one we take and everything. By the time we did the numbers, we sat down, myself and my husband, we did the numbers like, nah, it can't work in Naira.
How long did you expect to get to recoup the investment? How long did you plan to recoup the investment?
So something like about within 3 years, 3, 4.
That's not.
Or something that will work.
That's
no, it's
that's
not.
Too early, No.
Of all the properties I've built, I've bought every land. There are people who cannot build. They are not in the business of building.
And because
they have connection,
they
will go there, they will give them all
and
of
the land
this
is just sitting there fallow.
It's sitting there and you buy it expensive. And then you expect that I'll buy it. Somebody will stay at the Senate because it's not a senator to pass law and tell me that if I don't put it one more, or if I don't put somebody in. Which one government don't build?
Government cannot provide housing for everybody. It can
but
try.
Who have they provided
it
for?
It can try. You can try to be able to do that, which is why you have what you call a mix, all right? So the government will do its own bit, and then property developers will do their own bit. So what you would do is that in any system, what the government will try to do is to provide some kind of support for developers, estates, whatever, to be able to do that. So what we're trying to do here is to say, okay, what part of that law can be improved? You'll agree with me that if I earn my income monthly, I should pay rent monthly. I don't earn my income yearly. So if you're asking me to come and pay rent for 1 year or 2 years, where am I going to get the money from? If I give you that money, you really should ask me, where am I getting this money from? I'm probably going to steal it from somewhere. And probably if I'm a public officer, I'm probably doing something corrupt to get that money. If I'm a private officer, so this creates a field of inefficiency, inequalities, and feeds corruption. So if we want to really solve some of these issues that we're having, we have to create a system that protects the landlord. So what you're asking for is protection.
First of all, let me tell you something. There are a lot of places that can be opened up. In short, the other day I think I tweeted it, that Nigerian government should be paying, I should not be paying tax, because I've opened up a lot of areas. I will give you an example. Right now, people are making us that, oh, Wike is working in Abuja. And I say he's not working. He's busy building roads inside the city center that don't need roads, are putting additional roads. Meanwhile, a lot of the areas that need housing, that you will open up those places, and then there are people who have lands there, they're unable to even build.
That's a valid point.
Build because there's no infrastructure have not been taken there. That's something that can be done.
Okay.
Well, we will not always agree on the way forward, and I'm convinced that monetary rent will come, and it's the right thing to do. We must be share leaders for change, encouraging positive developments where we see them. And this is one of those positive developments. Ande is up next, and he seems to be cheering for our leaders that don't hold on to power at all costs.
Interesting conversations and time to discuss when to give up power. We are going to continue talking about leadership and on our heroes past. Today, we want to look at the issue of succession. Nelson Mandela, Olusegun Obasanjo, Abdulsalami Abubakar, and Goodluck Jonathan, amongst other qualities, stand out by not holding on to power at all costs, as we often see amongst African leaders. Mandela was his country's first president post-apartheid. And if anyone could lay claim to life presidency based on sacrifices made, he would surely have been the one to do so. He did not contest a second term, which he was constitutionally entitled to. Obasanjo was the first military head of state to return Nigeria to civil rule. He also concluded his 2 tenures as a democratically elected president and handed over peacefully to another civilian. Abdulsalami became military head of state, and without delays, returned the country to civilian rule within a year, in record time, an unusual feat in our clime. Goodluck Jonathan was the first democratically elected president in Nigeria to lose an election while being on the ballot, and he handed over peacefully to the opposition party. As simple as it sounds, relinquishing power in Africa has been a big challenge, with many heads of government staying for life or ousted through violence. And as we have said before, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Some of these sit-tight leaders will try to justify their stay, but again, it's said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Another critical aspect of leadership is grooming successors. Is it enough to just hand over? I'm not referring to godfatherism, where one leader handpicks a favorite, anoints him and thrusts him on the people, but deliberately identifying a pool of potential leaders based on merit, giving them responsibilities, monitoring and grooming them deliberately in the art of statecraft, with the hope that they get the required experience and expertise to step forward. How long will the quest for power be personalized, with same individuals stepping forward every election until they are old, past their prime, with delicate health conditions? How have our heroes past fared in terms of grooming successors? And how can we make the issue of grooming capable successors a reality and raise leadership above individual aspirations? My question to you, Kate.
Heroes past, Otilo. Their labor is in vain. It's no more relevant. Heroes past is in the past participle. Yes. You mentioned ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo.
Yes.
Inside there.
Yes.
What about the third term you wanted to do?
I was waiting for somebody to say
Kate,
that.
are you spying on
No,
my
I was just like, because
See, I think we all wrote it down.
the third term, no, and they need to revise your list.
So let me say this before
I've
you
not
continue.
finished.
On
No.
Obasanjo very quickly, because he has come out in writing
And said what?
in his book
That
he did not ask for third term. He mentioned names. I'm coming. He mentioned
Did he
names.
stop it?
He mentioned names in that book. None of them has come out to say he's lying. He's on record. And even if he tried it and it did not become law, he still respected the existing law.
I beg you. Please, let me finish. And Abdul Salami is there. He was just putting a standing. I don't know. Some names should be questioned in this or whatever. They are not interested in grooming successors, but puppets who will continue to do their bidding, even though they are no longer in government. So, I'll leave it to Aisha and the rest. When Nigerians are ready,
You know what to do.
I leave it.
The thing is that why should they be
Your
interested in
Lordship.
grooming a successor when they know that whatever they do at the end of the day, they enter the history book as heroes? You know, we turn villains to heroes in this country, and then we wonder why things are not going the way that they should go. It's crazy. Just like what we have right now in what do you call this country, Rwanda, and what's happening with Paul Kagame and the things that he's doing. He's doing exactly the same thing that was the former, the late president of Zimbabwe, what's his name? Mugabe,
yes.
Did. And then, people just sort of like, oh, yes, they're working, there's development. Look, development, and no matter how you develop a place, if you don't ensure that the people are empowered, and especially when it comes to this leadership in terms of succession, which is very critical, everything can be destroyed in 1 second.
Yes.
Destruction is very easy. It's building that is very easy, that is very difficult. And I think what is most important is for the people also to continue to participate in governance. What we've had is beyond blaming the people who are in leadership position, the citizens also aren't doing their part. And because of that, they've allowed a lot of, impunity to keep going on. And if they begin to hold people down, for me, it pains me a lot that Obasanjo, if we look at the 25 years of uninterrupted democracy that we've had, that Obasanjo is still better than everyone that has come. I mean, at that time, we're like, no, that should have been the worst that we have. And unfortunately, right now, it is turning out to be the worst. And it's not good for Nigeria. He had the third term bid that failed, and there were people who stood, if not for the National Assembly, who probably would have him as a life president today.
The thing with us Nigerians is that if you're not careful, important things like this that we seem to revise or that we forget. I think we forget.
We forget so readily.
I remember at that time, Ande, it was a big deal. It's not something that one wasn't sure of. Obasanjo wanted to do a third term. It's because people stood up to it and said, look, no. That's how, at the end of the day, he didn't quite get away with it and he had to leave. Having said that, I don't know whether you're talking about, this succession you're talking about is for the presidency, because what we see, the pattern we see in many of the states is that they bring their own stooges.
Yes, they do. Yes.
So we see Kogi State, the man practically knelt down for the outgoing governor. We see what's happening in River State.
Yes.
So the two of them fell apart at some point, and Najimata will still they settle so. In Lagos too, we forget easily. What about what is Ambode?
So
what about Ambode?
Yeah. And
At
so
that time, so you see this thing, maybe it's a Nigerian thing, I don't know. However, we need these heroes present to understand that for us to chart a future, they need to look at the mirror. Kate said something about the man in the mirror the other time.
Yes.
They need to look in the mirror and ask themselves, this thing I'm doing today, is it fair to all concerned?
Thank you.
Is it going to move us forward?
Thank you.
Because we have a problem with succession. And it's not just in politics, even in the civil service, even in our own organizations. So Nigerians, it's easy to criticize the leaders that are prominent. But in our micro organizations, what are we doing about succession?
Yeah, Yinka, you seem to have a lot to say, but you don't know where to start from.
It's not about housing.
You have to go there, right?
Of course. I couldn't wait.
I want to give kudos to Senator Ken Nnamani.
Senator Ken Nnamani.
Yeah. Because he played a pivotal role in thwarting the third term agenda.
No, that's what we are telling Ande.
Of OBJ. Now, I'm saying this because Nigerians have short memories. And over time, we begin to praise people who shouldn't be praised. I mean, you mentioned 4 people in your advocacy. You mentioned Nelson Mandela, Obasanjo, Abdul Salami, Goodluck Jonathan. For me, the only 2 people that we should mention it's just Nelson Mandela and
Goodluck. Finish.
The other 2 imposed themselves on us.
Yes.
All right, and then one tried to extend his reign beyond the
law,
constitutional terms provided. So that needs to be said. Now, you talked about succession planning, and I agree with you. Succession planning, it's a very important part of leadership, because leadership is about influence, we know, but also leadership is about vision. And that vision is about what the future holds, okay? And that's where we begin to see the challenge you have here. I mean, you think back over the last 12 years, and then you can almost connect it to Obasanjo, third term, Yaradua, Jonathan, where we are today.
Yes.
And when you think about it, you ask yourself that a man who was privileged enough to rule Nigeria as a military governor and as a civilian governor, what vision did he have? If he had the vision, like we have in the leaders, the monarchs in the UAE, for instance, as a leader, would Nigeria be where we are today? But the idea of imposition, to say, okay, I want to be able to have my own agenda, whatever, I impose people, is why we are today. So I agree that succession planning is important. The challenge is that it has been abused in Nigeria. And yes, you mentioned Lagos. Lagos, okay, in the Ambode issue might have got it wrong, but they got it right with Fashola.
I like that you mentioned the case of Kagame. They say he's developing the place, but remember, my advocacy today is to honor those who left. Regardless of how you think they left, they agreed to leave. No, it's important because it's a big problem in Africa. Just yesterday, Burkina Faso, the new guy in Burkina Faso has extended his rule by 5 years. The military guy there. If Abdul Salam, he didn't come in through a coup, he came in because Abacha died. If Abdul Salam had given a 36-month calendar, nobody would have faulted it. They will say, okay, it's reasonable.
There was a winner of the election.
No, I'm coming.
Why didn't he hand over to the winner of the election?
Please, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
Why didn't you go there?
There is a process. How you come in and how you leave. You cannot.
Succession, just like leadership itself, is never easy with different views. However, we need to focus on the greater good rather than selfish leadership. Funke, over to you.
Well, for me, I'll be speaking about the children. And I'm going to start with a song Hear the children crying. Hear the children helpless. Hear the children crying.
I know that song.
Mama mio.
Christian Sieni Bokwe.
Mama, you got it.
Yes.
That's a song by talented songstress Christian Sieni Bokwe. And you may be wondering why the song. Come along with me. In the month of May, Nigeria commemorates two significant days, Children's Day and World Menstrual Hygiene Day. This year, I checked endlessly for a welfare policy for Nigeria's young. Whether things will change, I found nothing. The Nigerian child still does not have any special gifts for them, the children born in Nigeria or to Nigerian parents. The theme this year is Together for a More Period-Friendly World. Nigerian public schools need water, good toilets, changing spaces to be period-friendly spaces for girls to learn. And just as notebooks are provided by UBEC, our teenage girls need pad banks in schools. Now, Nigeria is a secular state according to our constitution, yet the federal government spends billions as subsidy for Hajj. Now, I don't know whether the same subsidy will go for those going to Jerusalem for pilgrimage. If that happens, the country will have wasted those billions on what should be the personal businesses of individuals instead of spending them on children, our future. To borrow the 3 C's of Fixed Politics Group run by Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, capacity, competence, and character should be our collective goals for Nigeria's young. I advocate that local governments, supposedly closest to the people, have the capacity and the funding to populate pad banks in school. Next, let us abolish period tax so that the price of menstrual pads can crash. Our girls deserve to bleed with dignity. And as I close, I remind our leaders of the 90s hits, which goes, we are the world, we are the children, we are the ones to make a brighter day, so let's start giving. We need to intentionally start giving what our young need to thrive as future leaders. That will be the beginning of a great Nigeria.
Okay, your advocacy hits on every... We did that song on Monday. We posted it. Yeah, we are the world. We a couple of celebrities, Enioluwa, so many of us, Korede Bello, Waje, and the rest. We came together and we did that song. We posted it on Children's Day, produced by Enioluwa and myself, of course. Kudos to Pad Up Africa. She's a young girl doing a lot of work in the menstrual space for young girls. She has gotten up to a point where she's gotten a few people who are making reusable pads for young girls so that they don't have to keep buying. You wash and then you wear. I've supported her in the past. So I just really wish she could be supported properly by the government. And yes, I don't see why government should subsidize my spirituality. I want to travel, so I should be responsible for my trip. Are they taking me up to heaven to meet my God, either God or Allah? I mean, why we are wasting scarce, as they say, resources, majoring on the minor. Let me quote Auntie Obi, like she said in her tweets, like 96 billion times 2, because I'm sure they're going to do it for the Christians. I saw Aisha nodding.
They do it.
96 billion times 2 for people. If you want to travel to Jerusalem, please go. You want to travel to Mecca, please go and cleanse yourself. I don't see what we should stop this. Our children need so much. There is nothing for children in Nigeria born on ground for their parents, for the children. Nothing. No social security, no welfare, nothing. When I rest.
As a young teenager, honestly, I hated Nigeria. I was so angry at the things that were happening. And, you know, even at my parents, at adults, and I wondered, why are you people just sitting down and the country is being destroyed? And I remember how my dad would tell me how when they were in the university, you know, they would four people to one chicken and all of those stories that they talk. And I always say to him, what have you left for me? You didn't keep those things for me. And today, it's sad that the same thing that I accused my parents of, I've also done the same thing. It hit me on my 40th birthday when I realized that, I have become the adult that I used to blame as a child, and there are other children who are also blaming me, and we've really, failed this country. In terms of pilgrimage, I mean, religion is a personal business. People should be able to foot their business. I'm a Muslim, and in Islam, Hajj is not compulsory on you if you cannot afford it. And there's nowhere where it said that the state money should be used, for Hajj. But there's something also you mentioned in terms of the local government. As long as we don't have local government autonomy, whatever we are talking about is we are just talking. There's nothing like, oh, it's the one closest to the people. It's not closest to the people. It's the one in the pocket of the state governors. And we need to, I think it's something that really needs to be worked on, where that separation happens. Let there be local government autonomy. Let governors, money shouldn't go to any state government and then it's coming to the local. It should go straight to them. Then when we are holding them accountable, we know who we are holding accountable.
Yinka. All eyes on you.
We're watching you.
Yes.
I was just going to add to the end of your comment about the fact that the federal government has gone to the Supreme Court. They've taken all the state governors to the Supreme Court on this.
36 powerful men.
Yes, on this issue of autonomy. I think that's something that Ande will be very happy about. Hopefully, they can cause a constitutional change somewhere along the line. Now, for me, the issue of padding up is not just an healthcare issue for women.
Yeah.
Okay. I also see it as a productivity issue.
Overall, it's just heartbreaking and perplexing, as I said, and I don't usually know where to start from, especially when it comes to the issue of children. Like, you carry money, you go and keep in a Swiss account when people are lying down on the streets in the states where they say.
Yeah, but it's not their children, it's not their families, so they don't.
Yeah, so I don't have much to say. I don't wish.
You can't give what you don't have.
I don't
you don't have capacity, you don't have character, you don't have competence, you don't have anything.
That's our future.
Yeah.
And whatever you sow, you will reap. I think it was Emir Sanusi. That was part of the problems he had earlier on. He was talking about these issues of children on the streets.
For 4 years now, I've been working on the sanitary pad media campaign. I have been to low-income areas. I've been to different states. I've been to different communities, and I see the period poverty staring me in the face. I imagine when people say Nigeria is broke, but we spent 96 billion naira on subsidizing Hajj. Imagine if we gave each local government, 776 of them, or 74 of them, money to go create reusable pads for the children and supply the schools.
96 billion on religion that has no effect on your life.
Absolutely not.
We are so religious, but
because they're going to do it for Jerusalem.
The evil is very heavy.
And I would like to add that part of the advocacy talked about tax.
Removal of period tax.
Yes.
Because condoms are not taxed. Condoms are not taxed.
So why should pads be taxed?
Condoms are free.
Yinka likes tax. We spoke about taxing sex.
Period tax should be removed. The prices of menstrual pads in Nigeria is double the former price, and we need to crush that price. That's my advocacy for this year's World Menstrual Hygiene Day. We need to tackle issues that affect us at the grassroots. This is grassroots issue.
Yes.
Aisha is up next, and she's bringing it home to the lecturers.
Mr. Lecturer, I say, may I tell you, now lecturer you be God. Dear Nigerian lecturer, why do you derive pleasure in oppressing your students, in dehumanizing them and belittling them? What would you cost you to be polite and respectful to your students? That you teach them does not mean that you are lords over them. It's not a master-servant relationship. It's a teacher-student relationship. You should inspire your students and not instill fear in them. The classroom should be a citadel of learning where ideas are shared, where lecturers take joy in imparting knowledge and have so much satisfaction from seeing walls of enlightenment that open up before the eyes of their students as they grasp the concepts of what they are being taught. What joy do you derive in failing your students or depriving them of their self-esteem and self-worth? Some of you are proud that no student has ever gotten a first class in your department. And some of you are even proud that no one can get an A in your course. A is for God. Some of you proudly proclaim. Mr. Lecturer, it seems that you are an incompetent failure, a failure that even failure is ashamed of. As a lecturer, you should be a source of inspiration, not a terrorist hiding in classroom terrorizing students. You should be a delight to your students and make your subject interesting to them. Whet their appetite and make them want to seek for knowledge beyond the classroom. Most importantly, you should relate whatever you are teaching them to the world they live in to make it more meaningful to them. Except if you are afraid of your ignorance of your subject being found out. Mr. Lecturer, let me remind you once again. Now, lecturer you be, you know be God. Your classroom is not the end of the world. There's a life beyond your classroom. And in this 2024, oppressing your students should be a no-no. Now, hurry up and go and fight for your rights in ASU and stop doing that transfer aggression.
This year, not grief for anybody.
No, not a grief for anybody.
There has to be a story behind this.
Oh, yes. So now one lecturer, I just finished my exams. I mean, maybe they are doing a course.
So they are students. I know that this one is a personal.
In short, I went to write the exam. If you see, the man was so condensed. All these copy and paste PhD holders. The way he was speaking to students, I had to intervene one time. And then we didn't start the exam early. The next thing, drop your pen. One said 10 minutes, the other one 5. Drop your pen. And for me, even as a child, I obeyed this thing. I was like, I told you guys, you didn't give us this paper on time. You know what he said? Somebody was telling somebody that, he knows how to deal with people like me. Hey, now I say, maybe we drop on here. Now I say, guy, you were. No, by the time we finished, they were like, okay, that kind, don't be angry, whatever. But I left that place so angry. I actually wanted to even stop.
What about the students who are there and cannot?
Most of them, if you see when he speaks to some of them, you just see them waiting.
Yes.
So Aisha, let me just tell you that in itself is a sign of poor education and poor exposure.
On the part of the lecturer.
Yes. It's not because somebody is a lecturer doesn't mean he was well educated.
Yes.
Or had a good exposure. So this is products of a failed system, and we have a vicious cycle. And sometimes, even we, the people, because of how the psyche has become, we reinforce it. I give you an example. I was in a committee with one of my teachers in school, and we're having a debate over things. Somebody went behind to tell the CEO that this guy is arguing with Prof. And then he asked me, so you think you know better than Prof? I said, we're having a technical discussion and we're bringing in our point. So because the person is...
But you're supposed to know better than Prof now. That's why Prof is teaching you.
But you're supposed to also question. How do you learn if you don't question?
I did my master's in the UK. We assess our lecturers at the end. And they will show you the scores. And you will see that students were very objective in how they assessed based on how we interacted with the lecturers. But is it here that the lecturers are fighting with ASU, as we are saying, struggling as ASU to get paid, or their classes are overwhelming, or that you want to start assessing them? Some of them even want to leave the job.
In Nigeria, there's just a cultural thing about how we treat people once we have power. Even give a common, and I don't want to call it common, but give a security man give a uniform. I say that you are the authority over this place.
It's over for you. Let your car, it is over for you. If your car is not big enough, you are parking outside. Be you who. It is over for you. Please continue.
So that's the thing, with us, and there's no greater authority in a school than that authority to which a lecturer exerts, because through the stroke of his pen, he can actually really just dictate the future.
That's
true. You understand? And they know that, and it's a problem that we have to look at from our cultural permissions and why that has become part of us, and also talk about how we need to ensure that through our training systems, whether from school or from home and all that, we put into the people that, look, everybody matters, all right?
Yeah.
People matter. You understand?
Question.
And don't treat people.
Question authority.
You know, and people can question you, and that's why I'm happy for the young kids of now.
Yes.
They will ask you questions.
They'll ask you a question, no?
And also, just to be able to, you know, create a balance, okay? We should also not ignore the challenges that these lecturers are facing.
True.
You know, ASU, yes, but the reality is that when you look at the environment to which they work, the income to which they earn, sometimes we understand the frustration that they have, and they come out and transfer this frustration. So the government should also do the needful to ensure that education in Nigeria is well funded, and you know we give these lecturers some.
Yesterday died last night, according to Aisha. I schooled here in this country, primary, secondary, university. Primary school, they used to give us milk during break time on our seats. Milk, this carton milk. We had guidance counselors in secondary school helping you decide your next set of subjects and maybe what you want to do when you leave. I don't know if those things still exist. The education has just gone whoop, 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 down to the bottom of the cavern.
I understand what Kate is saying, and it speaks a bit to my advocacy as well. How students are not prioritized and not valued. It's a value chain. There is a teacher and there's a student. The student is there to learn. You have to make the environment conducive enough for that student to learn. When the environment is also not conducive for the teacher to teach, you find what Aisha called transfer of aggression. Where
like the police and the citizens.
Yeah, exactly. So you find that transfer of knowledge from point A to point B then encounters hiccups, and what do they encounter when you're in the plane? Turbulence. So there is turbulence, which is what Aisha experienced with
turbulence.
And if we're talking about bad governance in Nigeria, honestly, I don't have any pity for the Nigerian lecturers, because you are part of INEC. You're the ones who bring in results. You'll be counting results that we don't understand them. And so all of us, we will gather so far up. Life is tough enough without us forming God in our areas of influence. Next time, count those votes.
You mean
well.
they are on in the lights?
No, Professor came to Abuja in the afternoon. They had to light everything.
You know.
Well, Aisha, just when you think life is tough enough, it gets even tougher. When will our change come? A chance gathering of friends yesterday brought forward the usual topic of Nigeria and where it is headed, and we had a heated debate about whether our change would come or not, and of course, when. The problem of leadership and that of followership was brought to the fore, and even though I have blamed both, I've changed my mindset and now believe that for sure that leadership is solely responsible for the state we find ourselves in today. Leadership that has a conscience for its people and a strong will to rid the system of everything that will detract from our progress, corruption, bad infrastructure or the lack of it, deplorable healthcare, lackluster education, bad roads, insecurity, and of course the mother of all progress inhibitor, lack of constant electricity. A system that encourages and paves the way for all manner of shenanigans should be done away with, and it's only a great leader that can ensure that kind of change. A leader must be poised for the task ahead. Roll up your sleeves, get down on your knees, and do the work. But please, spare me the old wives' tale of a cabal. I believe things are getting worse in this nation. Yes, they are. Instead of better, no amount of prayer, pilgrimage will suffice. It is only when our leaders, wives, children, and their relatives suffer the same fate as the common man that they will cease to pay lip service to the needs of this nation, because of a certainty there must be a change. There are three sets of Nigerians: those who fold their arms and seem helpless with the state of the nation, those who are ready to cause a change, and those who want to remain in the cesspit as they are making tons of money from the system as it is. This third group is in the majority and will do whatever it takes to maintain the status quo. Which group are you? I'm asking my panelists here. It is not enough to complain, mutter under your breath, murmur. If we decide we want to change, we need to do something about it. Over to you. Ande, you coughed. I'll start with you.
Start with you.
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank you, Kate, and congratulate you for being a convert to putting it on the desk of the leader. That has always been my view. If you read my write-ups, I don't have all these as followership. No. Leadership is important, and leadership is not for everybody. Okay? If you are great, as you say, we need a great leader. If you are wise and you have the capacity, you will handle the cabal. Cliques will be there, problems will be there, but you will go above all those things. I'm quoting Machiavelli a lot today, but Machiavelli said, in a system, especially like ours, he described it, where corruption has eaten deep and all that, you are not going to change the country by many good people. No, it is one great, wise leader. And that is what we have been looking for in this country. So I agree with you 100%.
Aisha?
Oh, yeah. I think what he said really struck me. Leadership is not for everybody. And we need to accept that. And people also must have the integrity and character to be able to say the leadership is not for them, even when they are offered. You find people just get into position, or they just strive to get there when they know they really don't have what it takes. Even it might be at that moment. Later they can do it. So people must be very, mindful of that. When it comes to prayer also, I think Nigerians have gotten into this place where they think they have the patent to prayer. So they will do nothing and they'll be telling you that, oh, God will fix Nigeria. I'm like, God is a just God. He's not going to do it when you're doing nothing and then they'll give you the same thing as the people who are putting in the effort. I will end with something I always say, that there's a symbiotic relationship between our religious rulers and our political rulers. Our religious rulers, they need bad governance for them to be able to sell cheap miracles. That's why somebody, you get a visa to a country, you are happy, you say it's a miracle, it's a testimony here and there. Meanwhile, other countries don't even need the visa to go to, other citizens of other countries don't need visa to go to that particular place. So they need to sell cheap miracles. And then the political rulers, they need the religious rulers to keep the people subdued. That's why they will say to you, oh, protest is haram. Don't go out and protest. Oh, yes, you're suffering in this world. When you get to heaven, you're going to enjoy in heaven. Who says I can't enjoy on earth and also go to heaven and enjoy? And therefore, on the Christian side, they will say to you, oh, why are you focusing on government? You should focus on your own miracle that you will get it. I mean, that's but if we need to break, we need to find a way of breaking that hold that religion has over Nigerians.
There's a myth about the great leader and how, that leader rides in on a white horse to save the day. And sometimes, to a large extent, I understand why a lot of times we are convinced that all we need is that Messiah that shows up in the name of a leader and that has that influence. And what we fail to realize is that the leader himself is a creation from us.
Thank you.
So, and if we don't start the leadership from us at the individual level, we will not get to that point where we can produce a leader, because the leader is a reflection of us as a society. Now, there's a book I read a long time ago that actually redefined my idea of leadership. It's The Leader Without a Title by Robin Sharma. And what Robin Sharma said, in that book really was essentially trying to deconstruct the myth around the fact that you need to have a title, you need to have some recognition, something bestowed on you as a professor, as a governor, as a managing director, or something like that, to be able to exert leadership. What he said in that book was essentially that you can be in your position without a title, and you can exert influence, because leadership is influence. And in that, you are able to, become recognized without even necessarily having a title or anything. So we have to start having, this leadership conversation. I'm so happy that your advocacy connects with Andy's advocacy as well. It's very rare for us to have two advocacies that are very similar in the same on the same day. I mean, my closing point is, when you ask the question, which one are you? I asked the question myself. Which one am I?
Yes, which one are you?
And I'm still trying to answer that question.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay,
going to jump in right away. I believe the quality of leadership is determined by the quality of followership, because leaders come from the followers. If you're followed for a while and then you move to that point where you become a leader. Having said that, there's also what is called the power of one. When you're a leader, you're under the spotlight. You do this, you do this, you do this, but you also need a follower that is upright, who catches the vision that you've cast. And that follower, the quality of that follower will determine the other followers coming and how they push the boundaries with you. The problem we have in Nigeria is that even we followers enable bad leadership. We enable bad leadership in so many ways. The same thing we criticize our leaders for, a lot of us do it. And so the leader gets there and it's very difficult for the leader to create change.
I feel that, I mean, no one can actually force me to do what I don't want to do. If it's not in me, there's nothing you're going to say, any inducement, enticement that you're going to make me do what I don't want to do. So let's take, for instance, just off the cuff, this convoy, 76, there's no need. If you don't want it, say I don't want it.
You won't do it.
Nobody's going to force you and say, oh, you know, you set the pace. You set the tone. It is possible.
In every place, that leadership, there's influence that's attached to it. People give up their sovereignty to be able to have some people that will make decisions on their behalf, and they have the law with them. And if you look at most countries in the world, there's always one person. If you look at UK, you're talking about Margaret Thatcher, Winston Churchill, you're talking about the US, you're talking about Washington, you're talking about Abraham Lincoln. And no, for France, I can't remember his name, but the person who was president during the war, had a lot. Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. You know, Nelson Mandela.
Nelson, I was going to say Nelson as well.
So what I'm trying to say, no, it's not about. I will tell you. I will come to this generation and tell you about it. And I always use Buhari. It's 2015. The moment Buhari won election, there was what they call body language, because the leader Buhari himself became incompetent, became corrupt, and all of that. And so it went. So you can't blame the people.
You see, leadership comes with having capacity. If you have capacity, as I mentioned, all the issues about cabal, the followers, your leader should inspire the followers to follow. All right? Because, so it's all encompassing. Leadership is not easy. Leadership is not small. I understand what Yinka is trying to say. That's general leadership, but there's also positional leadership. You are mandated, you are given the right by the Constitution, you are given power to do something. There's also that kind of leadership, and that's the one we're talking about, where you be disruptional, where you be transformative, okay? I've seen agencies, let me round up with this. You see an agency of government, when they just bring one person, everything changes.
Abraham Lincoln said the philosophy of the classroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in another. So if we want to create the utopia that we are talking about, it's not today.
It's not utopia.
Absolutely.
We're going to have to start from the children, from the classroom. Begin to teach them about these dogmas, these principles, and these things, because that will be the philosophy that they will carry into government.
And who will teach them? The leader.
Is the leader. We challenge ourselves as much as we challenge you, the viewers at home. We must be part of the change that we seek, or, well, merely making noise. Join us again, same time, same station, at the table, to be a part of the conversations that make things happen. Till then, it's goodbye from all of us.
Goodbye.
Sai Anjuma.
Bye. Peace. Okila.